food has changed and our behaviors have changed. We are eating all the time. There's information overload.
However, what we are implementing is not exactly in sync with the information we have.
No, and we are all, most of us are just living in guilt.
What is causing sugar cravings? That's probably a question everyone listening in wants to know. A large number of people
all
have.
these missing links are rooted in one thing, is your gut microbiome. Kitchens were run by moms and they weren't available all the time. They were making food from breakfast or maybe a brunch and an evening meal, and then
couple of meals a day.
Kitchen was shut.
Yeah.
It wasn't available all the time. At best, she would make some snacks to go in between, but it wasn't like now. By sundown, it was all over. There are more than 8 neurotransmitters and hunger-controlling hormones in our gut. All of these are closely working with each other. They are synchronized depending on various signals and genetic profiles to determine how much we're going to eat. Going away from real food to fake food, to natural whole foods to processed foods. Going back to one of your questions, you said we have so much more food.
Yes.
But despite that, we are food secure but malnourished. Nutrition is not reaching us.
The world of nutrition is a confusing place full of diet trends, food fads, and celebrity endorsements. And so it can be hard to know what is actually a healthy and nutritious diet. How much protein do we really need? Are fats bad or carbs? To unpack all of these theories, I have one of India's leading nutritional consultants, Ishi Khosla, join us today to discuss what is real, sustainable, and truly healthy. Ishi has been practicing nutrition for over 35 years and has observed the various dietary habits of urban India over the last several decades. In 2006, she pioneered the Celiac Society of India as a public health effort. She has also penned several books such as The Diet Doctor and Eating at Work. Hi, I'm Dr. Archana Nayar, and I extend a very warm welcome to Ishi Khosla to the Thoughtful Medic podcast. Hello, Ishi.
Thank you for having me, Archana.
Very welcome, and I'm very, very happy to have you here, Ishi. Nutrition is a topic that we all discuss all the time. It's one of the most common things we discuss, even more than health and disease. So 35 years of practicing nutrition in the center of the country in New Delhi. I want to ask you one, how has nutrition changed? Its practice, how people eat, and what do you think are the problems? The second part of the question, what do you think are the problems in the modern Indian diet today? What you are seeing in your daily practice?
Well, as far as I see it, it's radically shifted. The change is so visible. And today, from talking about traditional Indian diets, I think that whole concept has got washed away.
Okay.
What we are eating in cities is so far removed, both in terms of the ingredients, the kind of food that from the agricultural perspective, to the ingredients, to the processing, the packaging, and the distribution, and 24/7 availability. It's all upside down. So what we are choosing to eat, how much we are eating, when we are eating, everything is like changed.
So when we talk of a traditional diet, or what Indians used to eat, a daily home diet, have the recipes or what we are consuming even changed? The sources have changed. I hear you say that, and I agree. But what we are eating, are we eating more from outside? Are we eating homemade food less? What are the considerations of change?
See, let's not go to an average household. Average is very difficult to define in our context because there's so much diversity, socioeconomic and otherwise. But if you just look at an average upper middle class family, but it's even changed even in the lower classes. Let me tell you that. In cities, it's not what they eat in their villages. It's changed.
Okay.
But I think the most dramatic change has come in the higher socioeconomic strata, in the middle class, with the industrialization of food.
Yes.
That has been the biggest difference in the change that has come about in our choice of food. I mean, the food has changed and our behaviors have changed.
As in, describe our behaviors?
We are unable to even regulate our food. We are eating all the time.
We're eating
We are
more frequently.
addicted to food. Yes, we are talking food, we are discussing food, and yet we are not managing food. We are getting much more informed. That's one of the biggest changes, that today everyone is talking about calories and proteins,
Yes.
calculations,
Yes.
and telling me that, this is what it should be. And I said, really? Where did you get it from? So, right from there. So there's information overload, there are myths, and there are new concepts which are coming about. I was in a lecture yesterday, just young freshers from the law faculty, and somebody's talking about dopaminol, somebody's talking about dopamine, somebody's
Yes.
talking about serotonin.
Yes.
I said, oh my God, these guys are so aware, but yet they were looking so unhealthy and unfit. And so it's not all adding up.
So there's information. However, what we are implementing is not exactly in sync with the information we have.
No, and we are all, most of us are just living in guilt that we can't manage. I cannot stop sugar. I can't, I'm hungry at 2 a.m. I have to eat.
What is
I
causing sugar cravings? That's probably a question everyone listening in wants to know. A large number of
Because
people
all
have it.
these missing links are rooted in one thing, is your gut microbiome. If you really join the dots from there, everything falls in place. Why we are unable to control the volume of food, why are we always hungry, or we are not hungry, or why are we wanting our fixes, the number of cups of coffee just to start the day, and to keep working, we need sips of coffee throughout. And so right from there to what we, in terms of what we're doing to indulge our palate, we're just hooked on. We're hooked
So
on
one
to
is
food.
the gut microbiome, and I would love to hear more about it. It's an important topic. But I also want to talk about availability of food. Because when you say that we are eating constantly or we are constantly thinking about food, food is also more available to us than it was, let's say, 50 years ago, when we had to actually, even 50 years ago, I'm not talking about the Stone Ages, when somebody had to cook the food, somebody had to go buy the food or the raw ingredients. Is the sheer availability of food, prepared food, changed the way we eat?
Partly, of course, partly. Kitchens were run by moms or
Yes.
grandmoms.
Yes.
And they weren't available all the time. They were making fruit from breakfast or maybe a brunch and an evening meal, and then
Couple of meals a day.
kitchen
Yeah.
was shut.
Yeah.
It wasn't available all the time. At best, she would make some snacks to go in between, but it wasn't like now.
So India did not eat frequently or as frequently as it does
no
today.
way. Really, it was by sundown, it was all over. Food was not,
Cooked
it was
or
only
served.
when the bulb came 100 years ago, when light came in and we started using the whole day to
Eat.
and to cook. So, yeah, it's a very big change in every aspect of our environment, our food systems, and that has affected our internal bodies.
Clock.
Yes, internal
So
clocks.
do we understand hunger as urban people who study nutrition, who read up about food, this is good food, this is healthy, unhealthy. But at a very intuitive level, do we understand hunger? Do we know when we are truly hungry or when satiety or fullness has come? Do we know that?
I'm tempted to give you a little insight on this, because that's what I tell everybody when they are listening to me in a talk, that we all have regulatory systems inside. They are sitting in our gut. A baby is given milk by the mother in a bottle. Can you give an extra drop when the baby says no? It's no. You can't overfeed a baby. Baby knows when to stop.
In those early days, the satiety, fullness, and all of those signals are very clear.
Who's telling the baby this much and no more? Or, so they are perfectly, they know
They're
their
capable.
regulation, and they are okay in their weight, unless we destroy it with our formulas and we give the other things. But so similarly, the important thing here to remember is that we all have those checks and balances.
But why are we not able to look into them?
When you destroy the microbiome negatively, these checks and balances get disrupted. There are more than 8 neurotransmitters and hunger controlling hormones in our gut. 8 and more, actually. All of these are closely, working with each other. They are synchronized depending on various signals and genetic profiles to determine how much we're going to eat or when we have to stop.
How have we destroyed our gut microbiome? What have we
That's
done?
$1 million question.
But some of it that you can talk about that,
It's
helps.
literally going away from real food to fake food, to whole natural whole foods to
Yes.
processed foods.
Yes.
It's a simple one-liner there. It's absolutely clear. And going back to one of your questions, you said we have so much more food.
Yes.
But despite that, we are nutritionally malnourished.
We
So
are
we are
deficient.
we are food secure, but malnourished. Nutrition is not reaching us.
So the gut microbiome, you're saying, because of processed food. So there's let me divide that into two categories. There is the obvious processed food which comes in packets, and then there is the unobvious, which is all of the raw food that we're eating is also processed, right? Because of the chemical chain, because of everything, the modifications that are happening to our grains, to our pulses, even to our fruits and vegetables. So now the gut. So how does that impact
Archana,
the
that
gut?
will not be counted as an ultra-processed food.
So that is not what we are concerned about right now.
Processings which are meant for convenience up to a point.
So you're not worrying about that so much?
When it goes into a factory, when it is being ripped off its, the nutrients,
Yes.
when it's being laced with chemicals,
Yes.
and then it's churned into various products, and then it's sitting on shelves with preservatives for months together, that's what we're talking about, which is loaded with taste makers, with sugars, with salt
sugar,
and preservatives, and that's what we're talking about.
Is this
if I have some kind of vegetable which has been packed in a certain way and watched, and that's all right. Even milk has to be processed to a certain extent to reach you in a box or in a bottle. So we don't worry about that.
So you are saying let's not microanalyze everything. Let's be more careful about the obvious ones.
Yes.
And the obvious one is packaged food.
Packaged food, and even the agricultural practices, how much of pesticides are going in, how much of the fertilizers which are chemical based, how much of that, and what kind of a soil is being used.
But that is something we cannot control, Ishi. That is something that
but all that has impacted us.
Yes,
and that is what you said. How does the microbiome change? It's these things that have caused the shift in the microbiome, and that squarely answers the question of why we are facing a crisis of health in the abundance of information.
So coming back to your gut microbiome, so if there are factors which we cannot control, are there corrections that we can do? So for example, the conversation on probiotics, prebiotics is very big today. Eating healing foods for the gut is very big. Elimination diets, gluten, casein, and probably other products. So the role of allergens. So can you talk a little bit about, if our gut microbiome is being destroyed, how can we proactively protect it?
First, identify the problems. So, like I say, the cure is in the cause. So, one of the biggest disruptors of the microbiome is the modern wheat, the PL480, which has been introduced for good reasons, for very good intentions. It was a high-yielding variety which was meant to deal with the famine in the 1960s. But unfortunately, wheat is an immunogenic grain in itself to some people, and to some extent, it does sort of disturb the gut lining. But in most people, they tolerate it and it gets repaired. But I think the modification of a grain, which is a known allergen, is probably the
big cause.
Possibly. That's a hypothesis, but we can actually chronologically join the dots that, 20 years after it was introduced in our population, we have been seeing or witnessing the epidemic of obesity, heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune problems, thyroid problems, and today there are newer and newer problems.
Yes,
autism was not even known when we were students. It's only in the last 25 years, and the data is frightening. So, and all of these are linked to the gut and the microbiome shift.
They're saying gut is almost like the new brain and heart, right? There is so much connection of the gut to all the organs.
It determines who we are, literally, whether we are overweight, obese, thin, or whether we are healthy, unhealthy, we are smiling, or we are, scoffing and scowling and sad. Everything is the color of my hair. Even, what I can say is the health of my hair, because the microbiome is determining the genetic
Does it? Yes. Now they're saying the
genetic
genetic makeup
orchestra is being determined by the
Yes.
microbiome.
So what can we do? So what can we do to counter the impact of the environmental toxins or things that we're exposed to which we cannot control?
I think in my practice, and as we see it in research too, the addressing of the right kind of grain is
Okay.
very important. That's the
Okay.
first step. And we are seeing that people who have established diseases or who are at risk of diseases, they really need to change the grains that they are consuming. That's not something which is easy. That's not something which is sometimes even acceptable, but we have to go that way.
And this is more acceptable from the point of the taste or the point of
Everything.
view of the gut taking it?
The acceptance?
Yes.
Both.
Both. So the gut may even take time. And can you give
gut can take time. An injured gut lining may not tolerate alternate grains. So it depends on who you are, what is your situation. But if I have to give a public health message, yes, please rotate your grains, have newer grains, have different grains. And in general, also worry about what time you are having the grain, because that also changes its digestibility.
So can you give an example of what is a good grain to exchange or rotate, and also timings?
So if I have to deal with an average urban office goer, for instance, because like I said, and it's so diverse for a housewife, it is so diverse for a
It's different
senior.
for different people.
So, but if I just look at a demographic of the working population, I would say that grains, they're pretty much sedentary, right? So grains are energy-giving foods. Energy is requirements for these people who are typically going to offices and are sitting. These requirements are very low.
Minimal.
Very low. So maybe you don't require it in 2 meals, 3 meals. You may require it in only 1 meal. And the choice of grain should be something which is not inflammatory. So right from any form of rice or quinoa or millets would be suitable. And apart from that, try and have the grain by 7 latest in the evening.
In the early part of the day.
It could be breakfast, lunch, or evening. But lunch, again, I don't prefer office goers to have grain-based food because it makes them very sleepy.
Sluggish.
There is a phenomena known as food coma.
Yes.
And we experience it. I experience it if I eat wrong, and I know what it is. And you just sometimes so sleepy and you can't function. And then comes the black coffee or the tea, and then some more add-ons, and it kind of is it kind of destroys your discipline and your day. And so I think grain around between 4, 5, 6 is a better choice for office goers. And I think when I give this option to my patients, they just love it because that's the time they're most hungry.
Yes.
So there is hour between 3 or 4 to 7 in my book, which I call the devil's hour.
Okay.
Which is
the devil's hour.
Yeah.
4 to 7.
4 to 7.
Okay.
Where the brain shuts down.
Okay.
All your mindfulness goes for a toss.
That's when you're going for coffee and cake and biscuits. Yes.
Everything, all the knowledge is in the dustbin.
Yes.
It's deleted.
Yeah.
And
because
the new file comes up of pleasure and indulgence, and you're ordering in and you're looking out for your the sugary snacks.
You're very vulnerable to food. Yes, at that point.
All the fried food comes in, all the pizzas and samosas.
Is this a glucose dip in the body? Is the blood sugar dip at that point? What's happening?
Perhaps, yes.
Yeah.
I may not say that it is a hypoglycemia, but it certainly is. It is a low
GI. Yeah.
So we, therefore, if we put the right grain at that time, it not only takes care of that time, but also makes a dent into your dinner.
Yes.
So you won't be very hungry for dinner. So by default, it becomes lighter.
So that should be your large meal. You're saying instead of your lunch or your dinner being a big meal, this 4 to 7 window, whichever meal you may call it, that should be the largest meal ideally.
Yes.
That's very interesting. And a lot of people are now eating dinner early.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information. A lot of urban people are saying we are going to eat our dinner by 6:37 or before 8 p.m. So that's also happening.
Yeah.
And this sounds like a sort of a related thing that you're saying.
Yes, in terms of performance, because it doesn't make you dip post-lunch. So it doesn't mean that you don't eat anything for lunch. Maybe you can have your salads and your proteins and your veggies and maybe some fruits, whatever, or maybe just have a coffee and nuts, depending on what.
Very interesting. So you're saying don't have a carby grain at lunchtime, but have it pre-dinner.
Absolutely.
And then what would your dinner
Because
look like in such a
patients,
case?
actually, a lot of people who come from the working class, they say, "Oh, we reach home so late. How can we have an early dinner?" That's how you can have an early dinner. You open your tiffin at 5 and have something else, or you have a second tiffin for yourself. So yeah, but and I like I always say, it's so individual.
Yes.
These are we are talking general. Some people just need that lunch. So if your peak hunger time is then, have it then, but have something at this time also.
So it depends on the person as well.
Yes, but this is a strategy which works, and I think globally people eat dinner at that time.
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of countries eat dinner between 5 and 7. It's a very common time.
Yes, and then maybe at night, if they feel like having something, they'll be having a chocolate or some dessert or maybe some fruits or something, which is or a protein if they go out.
I want to speak about protein. Since you're mentioning protein, I want to speak about protein in relation to the vegetarian Indian diet, because we are talking of traditional diets, and a large part of northern India can be or may be vegetarian. And the one question is that, does a typical vegetarian Indian diet lend itself to protein deficiency? And are we then also carb heavy? Because that is something that people worry about. And do we need to supplement protein, or are there ways within our existing vegetarian diet that can provide for all of the things that we need? Given the new impetus on increasing your protein. It's 2.2 grams per kg of body weight.
Who said that?
Almost every scientific conversation is saying, and which sounds like a lot.
I'm sorry, that's not scientific. Let me clear that.
All right, so let's hear your version. Okay.
That is pseudoscientific. And I think vegetarians feel sorry for themselves because they think they don't have enough protein or enough protein sources.
Yes.
But it's the non-vegetarians too today who are feeling sorry for themselves. Because they think they're not having enough protein.
They're not having enough protein.
Because of thanks to these kind of
2.2
ridiculous numbers which are floating around. So I'm so
how much protein do you think the body needs, and what are the sources? Let's talk of vegetarian protein. So for example, I am a non-vegetarian, but I prefer vegetarian food. And so I worry that, can I get my protein from vegetarian sources today, because I don't feel like eating any meat? Just a question, and that there might be pure vegetarians.
Archana, I have patients because of this new fad that has come in of upping the protein to this ridiculous level. Our vegetarians have started eating chicken and fish to meet that number, and they feel this lawyer yesterday said, "I hate it, but I'm just eating it because I'm supposed to eat it."
No, but food should be pleasurable. Food
but when you're doing
enjoyable.
The numbers, when suddenly this whole world is becoming a nutritionist or becoming an expert, the world is not to be taught nutrition because it's so half-baked. You cannot make sense out of these random facts which are floating around and making people go nuts over these little things.
So
I'm sorry, but I believe that we should talk about food, educate our people, not about nutrition, but about food facts, about what they should be eating.
So you're saying don't divide it into the components of protein, fat, carbs.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely
that is not needed.
Not needed at all.
That's a very interesting
take.
It's
needed for some people under certain circumstances, not for telling people what to eat. You should, divide food into groups. At best, you look at groups as in cereals. That's the grains. All the grains or carbs, you want to call them.
Yes.
Cereals, grains, carbs, staples, whatever. Yes. And I think everyone understands what we're talking about. Yes. Roti and rice and the pastas and the pizzas and the breads and the dosas and the idlis, etc., etc. That's one group. That's the grain group. Then you move to the vegetables and the fruits.
Yes.
So it's an obvious, everyone understands what are vegetables and fruits. Move on to pulses. Yeah, that's your protein and dairy.
Yeah.
And then your meats, fish and eggs.
Your fish, poultry, eggs. Yeah.
Nuts and seeds and fats.
Yes, nuts, seeds and fats. And so those are the groups you'd be talking about, and that should incorporate all the elements of every category is what you're saying.
Yes, and eat like what we say a half plate rule. Half your plate should be at least full of vegetables or fruits or whatever, and divide the rest as proteins and the grains.
How do we convince the listener? Because there's so much talk about building muscle, especially for the older generation, people over the age of 40 who are listening in, and women especially, men too, that the lack of muscle can actually lead to many problems of aging. And so muscle needs to be built, and hence protein needs to be eaten. And I'm just saying
Yes.
things which are so popular in the conversation
Absolutely.
today.
I'm smiling because I hear them all the time.
Yes, so I'm obliged to put, yes,
It's an
sarcopenia.
Indian problem, but the Indian problem is not sarcopenia. The Indian problem is the Indian gut.
So you're saying the Indian problem of sarcopenia, of muscle mass, is not a real problem?
No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's not the problem. It's a manifestation of a problem.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the whole idea of muscle and protein, that how we need to build muscle and hence we need more protein, especially as we age.
So sarcopenia is, I think the listening audience understands, is
Yes.
the inadequate muscle mass
Yes.
on the body. And it is a real problem. It is an Indian problem, but not only in India. But it has not too much to do with our protein intake. It's about the gut. It's how much is being absorbed. It's like any other. The problem of anemia, or the problem of deficiencies, the problem of malnutrition is not about lack or inadequate food.
You are saying that we might be eating enough protein, but if our gut is not able to absorb it, we
got
will not
it.
utilize it.
You've got it.
And how do we differentiate if we have lack of protein or if we have a bad gut?
How do we differentiate?
How do we differentiate if the lack is in our absorption or in our consumption?
To make muscle, you
Yes.
need maximum, for an average person, anything between 4 to 5 servings of protein, which are very easy to make. For most people do that, in the sense, having 2 protein-rich meals. Just 2 protein-rich meals is good enough.
And give me an example of vegetarian and non-veg.
muscle-
Non-veg is easy.
No, I'll give you, let me finish this,
Yes.
because muscle will develop when you exercise it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. It's not
Absolutely.
going to, protein intake is not going to equal muscle till you use the muscle.
100%, I agree with you.
So the
Yeah.
listener must have energy to exercise and to do the workout.
Yes.
And that is that requirement is carb.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you use energy to work out and you have modest protein, and let's define what is modest. Having 2 servings of dal, 2 eggs, and some nuts and seeds or some dairy is good enough.
For a day.
Yeah, it's
Where
good
we
enough.
are not calculating, we are just saying we've eaten enough of
protein
this.
like we ate earlier.
And now every meal having protein in it, X amount of protein.
I have a lawyer here in my mind who came to me just 2 days ago, and someone gave her this formula, and it amounted to 150 grams of protein.
Yes, I'm not surprised.
And she was having a protein powder, she was having eggs, she was having chicken, she was having, I was shocked at her, and she was putting on weight.
Because excess calories from protein too.
She was putting on weight and she was feeling slow, sluggish, and in her mind doing a great job because she was exercising at her peak, she was lifting, she was doing everything. And she was feeling lousy. Matter of 1 week of change of, I said, slash it down to half. We don't need, and then we'll come down to even lesser. And she said, I'm feeling so much better. She lost 8 centimeters on her belly in 1 week. She's already lost, in now the 3rd appointment, 3 kgs, 3 plus kgs are gone. But she's saying, I'm feeling normal. And you see her pictures, she's a different person. She was inflamed. She was looking
too
so
much.
unfit.
There was so much protein.
And this is as of now. Fast forward 1 year, she's going to be ready for a health problem, which could mean anything. I can't even say anything. I can't predict. But yes, we are seeing these fatal young cardiac arrests. We are seeing high CRPs in such people. We are seeing skin rashes outwardly. We are seeing hair loss. We are seeing mood changes. Everything with this kind of excess protein. And even if it is natural, it need not be so much. Even if I'm not talking of a protein, processed protein.
Yes, protein powder, protein supplements.
Otherwise, if I'm eating, and she's telling me, I cannot eat this chicken. I prefer eating vegetarian, but that coach told me that I have to eat it. That's not the way to decide food. Come on, that's
you
not
are looking
fair.
at food in a more comprehensive way, which I appreciate, which also goes very much against the current conversation that's going on around protein, which makes it also very
Which is
interesting.
okay. Which is okay.
Fine. Yes,
For
I
certain
agree.
people, for the ultra athletes, for the Olympians, where we are doing, ultra
Yes.
events, those are fine tuned, and we need to do
Their
certain
protein needs are different.
Yes. But for the average population, to build muscle, to eat more protein is ridiculous.
And if you're not working out more, so if somebody's working out, let's say an hour plus a day,
Yeah.
Are they falling in the category of elite athletes? They're not.
At all.
They're
not
not
at all.
Yeah, 1 hour of a good workout is not enough to put you in that category.
I'm reminded of young bunch of kids, youngsters. They must be all in the age groups of 18 to maybe 20, late 20s. Yes. And there is a martial art in the South. It's called Kalri Patti.
I know Kalri Patti very well, yes.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Have you seen their bodies?
Yes.
Have you seen their ripples on the muscles and their flexibility?
Muscular.
They're muscular.
Yes.
And they eat normal food. They don't have an extra gram of, nobody's doing mathematics there. They are absolutely local villagers who are doing it.
Yes.
I asked them their
game.
food.
Yeah.
I asked them what do they eat. They eat dal, roti, sabzi and fish. Not even roti that much. There is hardly any roti over there. Sorry,
and there isn't yogurt or dairy in the form of
just
protein.
A little bit. Dahi, dal, chawal, they can't afford it.
Yeah.
Just local fish once a day.
And they do have the most fabulously rippled bodies.
Oh my God,
yes.
they are a model for fitness. So we have to go deeper into the science. Because they are villagers, they're not eating processed food, they're hardly eating any wheat, they're not eating junk at all. And you see their bodies.
And so you truly are connecting this to the inflammation in our gut, perhaps, rather than a lack of protein.
Totally. I have other patients, sports people. I don't want to name him here, but why should I not name him?
That is up to you entirely.
So, a very leading cricketer.
Yes.
And he is completely dairy-free because it doesn't suit him. He's gluten-free. And he hardly eats any sugar. You see his body, he's like a model. He's got muscles, he's fit, he's doing so well, and he knows if he eats wrong, things go wrong. But, picture of health and fitness with muscles and low fat. You can see the lean body. And but the body is, he's been doing it for 10 years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So this is not to be messed around with because I'm seeing the consequences of it. And therefore, I'm speaking so vocally about it.
That's very interesting, Ishi. And thank you for that perspective because this is so different from every conversation that's happening about nutritional categories, specifically proteins.
Yes.
Yes. So I think a follow-up conversation perhaps on this.
And let me now, since you're talking about the actual numbers, I haven't corrected you. You said 2.2.
2.2, yes.
The numbers actually start from 0.5 to 0.75 grams per kg body weight. Average person today should be doing anything between 0.75 to 1 gram.
1 gram per kg body weight. But what I mentioned was almost double of that is what I'm reading and listening to. And a lot of people are. What I am saying is probably resonating with a lot of listeners. The number 2 or 2.2 is very common.
So I'll tell you another point here. Up until a few 2-3 years ago, the way to double it up was even more clever. They started saying 1 gram per pound of body weight.
Yeah, so that's why I said 2.2 per kg of body weight.
That made it double anyway, right?
Yeah.
So when we corrected that, now they're saying it's 2.2. I mean, I just don't understand where this is coming from and why youngsters are so vulnerable. I mean, I really do understand that. I appreciate that. And they want those bodies and they want those model-like looks and they're aspiring for that. But don't do it at the cost of your health and it's not going to work. And I actually have patients who are not making muscle despite all that because their gut is so bad.
That's very interesting. So the gut-brain protein connection sounds very interesting. But what you are describing, even I have observed that people who consume protein, there are sometimes reactions and interactions which don't add up. Although we don't have data, but this is a very interesting part. Ishi, moving on a little bit to society and because you're into nutrition, the conversation very often moves to weight loss or what defines healthy weight, or what a person on a day-to-day life, especially for women, this kind of pressure is so high, and we live in a very social media influenced world. What is weight loss and what is a healthy diet? What is a weight loss diet? What are you seeing and what do you recommend? Because there is so much chatter around dieting, the exact weight one should be, what are the right methods to do it. There's also like an elitist view of nutrition. Like people will say, I don't have enough information, that's why I can't be as slim as this other person, or this actress has access to the most amazing nutritional consulting. And so has it become so elite? Just to be healthy is an elite activity. It is not accessible to everyone. Is this not something that we should know intuitively or through a certain basic amount of help?
It's right now I call it a circus. It's a losing battle. We have been at it since the last 2 decades or more. And every other day there's a new diet, a new concept, and nothing is really sustaining. Because sustaining the diet, sustaining a lifestyle is the only way that this will ever, translate into a change. We will continue to live with guilt of extra weight, live with the guilt of not being able to follow a diet or a lifestyle.
Yes.
Because we think that, we follow this diet and I've achieved my, if I was 80 and now I'm in my 50s and I'm absolutely fit and I get a certificate, I get my medal, and now I can sit back. Doesn't work like that. There is no permanency in any weight loss diet or any weight loss approach.
And that is because it's not natural to us, or is it very restricted, or is it just not sustainable?
That depends on the kind of diet that you do.
Okay.
But the diet obviously has to therefore be sustainable for it to be working for you.
Should we then call it a diet, or should we just call it... I mean, I personally am very much against the word diet. It makes me already feel deprived. The minute anyone says diet, I start feeling hungry and deprived. So for me, it's important to say that I'm eating healthy.
Archana, the word diet means a way of life.
Okay.
That's the right... We interpret it as what we, like you said,
restriction,
deprived and restriction. But it is a way of life, quite literally. And if we don't approach it like that, if we do crazy things...
That's what I'm talking about.
And starve ourselves. And, at times you do need to go down for a few days, for a few weeks to do a cleanse or a detox and all of that. But that's not something which is a normal way of
That's a week or 2 weeks or a month at max, yes.
So until and unless the approach is teaching you how to eat long term,
yes,
what to choose, what not to choose, when to eat, and who you are, what suits you, and what are the reasons for your weight gain. If these are questions not being answered, it's going to fall flat.
So people start following something, right? You see something on social media and this influencer or actor says, I'm eating this for breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
So you go to the grocery store, you buy those things, you start eating them for breakfast, lunch and dinner. And your lifestyle or your taste buds or your exercise is completely different.
Yeah.
It's not the same as that person's.
Yeah. So I personally feel the approach should be, first of all, knowing the individual's problems and working now, as far as I do it, working through the gut.
Working through the gut.
Yes.
Every time.
Yes, because that's, like I said, controlling the narrative. I have patients who come after antibiotics and say, weight कम नहीं हुआ और बढ़ गया, हमने तो पूरा डाइट किया. Antibiotics is anti-microbiome, right?
Yes.
So we see it all the time. We also see that, suppose we're eliminating a grain, which is one of the inflammatory grains, and the grain is put back into the plate,
diet,
and the person comes, which is, things which have never been said. I'm so bored of the diet. I don't feel like dieting. I said, okay, you've eaten something wrong. No, I followed the diet. And then you find out like a detective that one bite of a cheesecake or a bite of a roti or a bite of a naan or something has been consumed. That much will change the mind. And they will come back feeling So the dopamine and the serotonin and all the
good
happy
hormones
hormones have dipped.
have gone.
So I said, so let me add the next few things that have happened to you. You didn't sleep well? Yes, we didn't sleep well. You had sugar cravings? Yes. You felt bloated? Yes. You felt low on energy? Yes. So all those 4 or 5 things are happening real time to a person who has injured the microbiome, even with traces of
Just by a
Yeah.
small amount of a food that doesn't agree with them.
Yeah.
But
So there is no shying away. The evidence is absolutely compelling. And here I'm going to tell you that patients who come, for instance, I have this lady in her mid 50s, and she had lost a lot of weight, like 30 kgs or something. And she was feeling great. And I said, this is such an accomplishment. Then she says, actually, I did it when I was younger. When I was in my late 20s, 30s, I also lost weight. And I also lost 30 kgs then. So I said, is there a difference between what you feel now and then? She said, actually, yes. That time when I lost my 30 kgs, I was put on a blood pressure pill. And today at 55, I'm off the pill. So what did she lose? She'd lost the inflammation, also accompanied weight loss. So we can still do weight loss with inflammation, but that is not healthy and that's not going to be sustainable.
So it's not just the number on the weighing scale, it's also how healthy we truly are.
That's the point.
That is, so we have to look at the body as a comprehensive whole,
Yes.
not just something on the weighing scale and a size that fits you, that you're a size 0 or 1 or 2, and so you're happy. It is about how your entire body is feeling. And a lot of people do end up going on diets which are so imbalanced. And,
yeah.
And
And the consequences are right there.
yes, and it's so invisible. We don't see it. We just see the dress size or the number on the scale, and hence we feel happy, at least in the short
Yes.
term.
And in this case, after her 15 kgs, this particular patient, she was feeling, like her blood pressure is dipping, and the doctor said, I don't think you need it. So it was phased out over 2 months and she was off the pill.
That's very interesting. That's very
And
interesting.
by default, when you work at the gut level, when you work at the inflammation level, you see magic happening. Things that I have never even imagined happen.
And so when we are looking at the body as a whole, and we are looking, of course, we were talking of weight loss, but I also want to talk of certain other elements, for example, dairy. And India, people believe they're lactose intolerant. Large number of urban people believe that they're lactose intolerant. Historically, we've been a country where we drink a lot of milk, we eat a lot of yogurt, paneer. What do you feel about lactose? Do you believe that we have true lactose intolerance? Do you believe it's the way the milk is modified today which is causing us, or is it something in the minds of people?
All of that.
All of that. So what is the
So
truth
I
about
would-
milk and dairy?
First of all, impression that people have about being lactose intolerant is only part of the story.
It's like bloating, you feel crampy, you feel uncomfortable, indigestion. These are very common
always been
symptoms.
there, and lactase and an enzyme with age does
Yes.
go down in
Yes.
some people. It doesn't happen to everybody, but it does happen. It's a known entity. It's not a very dangerous situation to be in. And lactose-free options today include lactose-free milk
Yes.
and lactase and lactate enzyme and yogurt.
Yes.
So that problem is quite easy to...
Also alternative milks like almond and soy milk. What is your view on those?
Well, if it's just a lactose problem, you don't even need to do that.
Yeah, you can just go for the
just go for
lactate,
this, and
yeah.
that's fine. It's a benign issue. I don't think we worry too much about it.
Okay.
But the distinction that people don't make is that they're using the word lactose intolerant when they're dairy intolerant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And dairy intolerance is about the milk protein casein.
Yes.
That is a different story altogether. So if you are reacting to milk or milk products,
Yeah.
you could be casein, milk protein intolerant. And that, even if you have curd or you have lactose-free milk, will continue to bother you.
Oh, so you cannot have any milk product if you are casein intolerant.
If you're dairy intolerant.
If you're dairy intolerant, yeah.
So that's the big difference.
So why do certain people say that yogurt agrees with me but milk doesn't? Why? When does that
That's
happen?
because they're lactose intolerant.
That's because they're lactose intolerant. So there's a difference between lactose and casein.
Yes. And according to estimates, it's not a figure that we really can vouch for, but it is estimated that 50% of people who are gluten intolerant are also dairy
Dairy
intolerant.
intolerant,
Not
yeah.
everybody is. So it depends on the state of your gut, how leaky it is, and your risk factors. But people who have problems, say for instance in autism, that
Yes.
it is a gluten-free, dairy-free diet or a casein-free diet.
So the GFCF, yeah?
It's called a GFCF diet
Yeah.
because these kids have a very leaky gut. And for no fault of theirs, of course.
No, it's just that...
It's the maternal microbiome which is translating into this. And tolerance to dairy is nil. So these people, because of this casein intolerance, should be zero on both of these, gluten as well as casein. And so the issue is partly of the lactose and of the dairy and of the quality of milk.
the modifications, the genetic modifications that have been made.
There is a beta casein element to this, the A1 and the A2. The A2 has a different variant which is less inflammatory than the A1. So that also is a factor. Some people do tolerate the A2 and not the A1. And then that is also basically dependent on the breed of the cow. And then, of course, adulteration in India.
Do you believe that if we have access to organic food, we should utilize that, or that is not primal in your mind? There are many other layers of habits that need to be fixed first besides organic food, or does it help?
You know, it's a good question that you ask. While I know what damage these pesticides are doing, these chemicals are doing, in my transformations, whether it is, I'm talking about changing mindsets, mind health, mental health, neurological conditions, or reversing diabetes, or skin problems, autoimmune problems, vitiligo, epilepsy, the whole, asthma,
Yes.
and rheumatoid arthritis, and
So you're talking of chronic
obesity.
inflammatory issues. You're talking
In
of
nobody's case, that thousands of patients, have I ever asked anyone to go organic? So we've kept everything the same, but we've only worked on eliminating a few things and building up the gut microbiome. We've not talked about organic at all.
That's amazing. So you're saying there
But
are...
having said that, I'm not saying it is not a problem. It is a problem.
No, I understood. But
Yeah.
you're saying there are larger issues to tackle
Yes.
when somebody is presenting with these chronic inflammatory conditions.
Yes. So they do respond, and they not only respond today, I can say they transform, they reverse.
Amazing.
So obviously, there is room to repair further. And if a person can move from the regular to an organic diet, which is anti-inflammatory and gut-friendly, couldn't get better than that.
Yes, so that's the right combination. Ishi, I want to talk about when we speak of food and we speak our relationship with food, I want to talk about behaviors. So a lot of people feel that they have the knowledge of what's right and wrong, but they don't have the ability to implement it on a day-to-day basis. So I want to speak about what we eat with regards to our behaviors. What is food discipline? How can we inculcate it without feeling guilty or deprived? And is there rocket science that certain people acquire and certain don't? And the other part of this question, what I've been hearing you say is, you put a lot of impetus on what's going on in the gut, which sounds extremely reasonable, but you are not putting that much responsibility on human behavior. You are saying that the person felt low because of this hormone or because of this ingredient they ate. I am asking you that, is there room for, greed or lack of discipline? Do you put the responsibility on the individual sometimes? And is there anything we can do without putting guilt? Is there anything we can do to change behaviors?
That's a very nice question, because one of the slides I always show is, it's not your fault. It's actually not your fault, because we see that happening for no reason, no fault of yours, for no reasons that you have contributed to this. You are suffering. And you are suffering not only the health burden, let's talk about obesity or depression or whatever. You're just suffering because you think, oh, there's too much stress around me, or there's too much of, I'm not able to sleep because of anxiety. And I'm, all of those things. We begin to start looking at environmental triggers, which are there. But they shouldn't be leading to problems. There has to be a resilience, which is what we lose when there are certain changes in our body for, like I said, no fault of ours. So we also live in guilt sometimes.
Because people feel...
I just cannot get up in the morning to go to the gym.
Yes.
I am, I feel I'm a failure.
Because personal responsibility and the idea of self-control. And you are saying it's not these things at all.
You know, Archana, the thing is that it is about autopilot mode. It happens so fast when you work at the microbial level. Even in the matter of 1 week, the individual comes back to me, my patient, and says, I just didn't get tempted. Everything was around me. My friends were eating everything, and and they're looking at me, what's happened to you? Why aren't you eating? What's happened? How? I always recall this one patient who, she was a young girl in class 8, and she was playing basketball 2 hours, exercising and gaining weight. She was not able to put a stop to her weight gain. And when she came to me, we changed her diet. And after 2-3 weeks, when she started losing weight, one of the comments the mother made was, we've never seen her so much in control. What have you done? I said, well, there are reasons for it. And she says, my nanny at home, I mean, this girl's nanny,
Yes.
has said, आप डॉक्टर के पास नहीं लेके जा रहे, आप किसी भूत जादूगर के पास लेके जा रहे हो. You know, that kind of
the change was so sudden.
आपने,
yeah.
So, you know, that is literally what happens. That
so you're not putting behavior.
It happens on auto mode. It happens on auto mode. I don't have to. People say portions. Tell us how much should we measure. I said no. You see how much you're eating.
So you're saying eat intuitively.
Eat mindfully.
Yes.
And portions shrink automatically.
They go down.
Patients say, actually, we don't feel like eating anymore. So the body gets what it needs. And I'm going to introduce my new term here called food resistance.
Food resistance.
Yes. Why we have insulin resistance.
Yes, I was thinking insulin resistance.
Yes, it's an extrapolation of that concept. That when the body is not getting enough nutrition, not getting nourished by the food, it's just going to make you eat more and more and more and more. It's dysregulated.
That's a very interesting hypothesis.
Yes.
That's very interesting that we are not directly playing any role mentally in these decisions. You are saying the body is taking these decisions on our behalf.
Yeah.
So it is not about mind-body control.
It is about mind-body control, but it's happening at a different level.
It's happening at a different level.
It's happening by the microbes.
So that's more of a cellular level.
It is.
Then it is not at the level of the intellect.
It is, because the intellect is also being controlled by, to a large extent, we have the gut-brain, there's a brain here. So the intellect per se does not play a role, because the body will gravitate to eating the right food. It's beautiful, and we see that. And people ask me sometimes that, you're not eating these foods, you're not tempted. I said, no. I'm not wrestling with my willpower 24/7. I don't need to.
But Ishi, what about the role of habit formation? What about somebody saying that I've been exposed or I've been used to eating burgers and ice cream and, sugary drinks? So one aspect from what you are saying is based on cravings, which are based on the inflammation or the imbalance in the body, is what you are saying.
The hormonal imbalance.
Yeah, what you are saying.
And nutrient imbalance.
Yes, internal imbalances. But what I'm saying is there is an argument that these are habits which have formed over the years, that, eating certain kinds of food, eating junk food, they are addictive in their own way, is habituation. So somebody might be habituated to these, and you are...
This is the point, that you get addicted to those. And say gluten has a protein called gluteomorphine. It hits your opioid centers, just like sugar hits the opioid centers to make you have more and more. It's a pleasure
it's a hook.
drive,
it's a hook,
and the dopamine secretion makes you have more and more. So that is real. It happens.
Then you would have a withdrawal even. Then if you would have a withdrawal, if you remove, how will you change your habits suddenly overnight?
The body is a beautiful machinery. If you take out the junk, it just will get onto a correction or an autocorrect mode.
That's very interesting.
It is autocorrect.
That's very interesting.
So I don't even have to tell my patients, kitna tel dale. That's another big myth. I'm going to just add this bit for anyone who wants to know this, that how hard is it to follow a diet plan for the rest of your life. If you have adequate protein, I'm not saying high protein, adequate protein. If you have a good amount of fat, good fat.
Yes. What's a good fat? Please describe it. Nuts, seeds, fish.
We'll describe it.
Yeah.
Good fats in abundance.
In abundance.
Not low fat. If you have good fiber.
Yes.
Some amount of fermented food, some vegetables and fruits to give you the phytonutrients, and fluid, enough water.
Hydration.
your body will not crave.
All the cravings will go.
Yes. The grain can be as per your requirements. Fruits, up to a point,
Yes.
are okay. But if you have adequate, and this means you have the adequate nutrients. So if you have missing nutrients like magnesium or for that matter, chromium and some other B vitamins, they can cause cravings. But when you eat right, these things just happen by default.
And so you think people
And
don't even
some
need supplementation if they're eating a
Oh
well-balanced
no,
meal?
it's a war zone inside. How can you not? It's like the war that's going on. After 3 years, Ukraine is not going to be able to sustain itself on its own. It needs help. It needs
the help.
aid. It needs support. So you
So
have to build it.
supplementation
Yeah.
does have a role.
Yeah.
And a well-balanced meal.
I'll give you an example here of this one patient who was aghast when he saw his reports. He was, according to him, doing all the right things. He came with certain health problems, but we did the blood work and his vitamin D was less than 8 and his vitamin B12 was less than 130. Less than. They didn't even put a figure. So he said, ma'am, I'm the only one in my family who suns himself twice a day. I sit out in the sun 20 minutes morning and
Body's
evening.
not absorbing it.
And he
The
was
body's
saying,
not
I thought
absorbing it.
I will cut it, and everyone
Yes.
is taking supplements and for the last 1 year, I've been doing that. But how will it be when it's not being processed? When then
Yes.
there's inflammation, vitamin D is getting consumed.
Also calcium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's so real that it's not the lack of food or inadequate food. It's just the wrong food.
It's the wrong food.
And
It's a great deal of freedom, what you're saying. The way you're describing it provides for a great deal of freedom in thinking, because there is so much, there's so much guilt, there's so much personal responsibility on the choices that we make.
we live in that guilt. It's really not required. Up to a
Yes.
point, in the beginning, you do need some hand holding.
Yeah.
But thoughts when they are joined by the patient that I ate this and this happened and I didn't eat this and this happened.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And example of deficiencies again, talking about vitamin D, look
Yes.
at anemia. I had this young woman who was in her late 30s.
Yeah.
And she wanted to conceive and she'd been through many IVFs which were not successful.
Yeah.
And with each IVF, she was gaining weight.
More weight, yes.
And the reason why she came was for her weight, because the gynecologist had told her that if you want a success of this, maybe try and lose some weight. Maybe that's what is causing the problem. So I said, look, your hormones are controlled by your gut.
Yes.
You will have to eat the gut-friendly diet, which means elimination of wheat, corn, soya, oats completely. And you will also need supplements to up your
Yeah.
And that's all what we're going to do. And maybe this time you have a successful IVF. And she was so excited and she followed it to the T. And within 2 months, she went for her treatment and she conceived. And she conceived twins. So when this happened, she came back with her reports. She says, ma'am, my hemoglobin has always been 8, 9, 9.5. But I can't tolerate iron. I get very bad digestive
it's tough to
problems.
do for iron supplements.
So I said, look, if you commit yourself to the diet, because even now there is no permanency. If you eat the wrong foods, you can again miscarry. There is no guarantee. So please, I had to tell her the facts.
So you really treated food as medicine.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
And it was a successful pregnancy up to the 3rd trimester. And she took no iron. And I'm not giving a message of no iron. I'm just telling you that without an iron supplement, she only took folic acid and the vitamin D and the magnesium.
How did she pull up iron then? This is through food.
We tested her on the 3rd trimester. Her hemoglobin was 12.6.
Fantastic.
Her lifetime's best. She had never had it.
But you had introduced iron-rich foods intentionally?
No.
No.
We just gave her a normal diet.
So you are then saying that there was an absorption issue again?
I am saying that all the time.
Yes, I can hear that. I can hear that.
Yes.
Wonderful.
So, and the
Ishi.
gynecologist finally said, just do what you're doing, because there was objective data here.
This is a different way of thinking. And I hope enough people hear this to actually question what they're doing in terms of their diets. Because, you are saying very similar things that most people might say, but the causality, the reason for it is very different.
Yeah.
And what needs to heal is very different alongside a change in diet,
Yes.
is what I'm hearing.
And from a public health perspective, Archana, it is sad that after 70 years, the stats look as dismal as they were in terms of anemia and malnutrition and stunting.
Yes.
And 50 to 60% And today, I believe the number has increased. Or women in the reproductive years and children are continuing to be anemic.
Yes. And that is unfortunate for our progress.
It is
yes.
about absorption, and unless we do something about it, an honorable Prime Minister has brought in a whole revolution of millets.
Yes.
And really, it is the
and
right
maybe
direction.
we will see a change in the next 5-10 years. Maybe
Yes.
things will look different.
Yes, I hope
so. Yes. But Ishi, we are running a little short on time, and I have a rapid fire round for you because I know people have so many questions related to food. So I'm going to ask you a few quick questions which will sort of shed light on what we do every day.
Sure.
Yes? Okay. So the one common Indian breakfast that people think is healthy but is not.
Upma.
Why is upma not healthy? Very quickly.
A, it's refined, and B, it has gluten.
It has gluten. That's true. Suji has gluten. So there you go. Upma can be some other grain then.
Yeah, absolutely.
With a
Make a
different grain.
quinoa upma, or you can make a barnyard upma.
Excellent. So millet or quinoa upma. So the best simple snack for sustained energy, which will keep us going.
There are many, but I would say the most rustic and the most indigenous is gur chana.
Lovely. And that's very tasty too.
Yeah.
Gur chana. There you
Or
go.
it could just be salted chana.
Okay.
It sustains beautifully.
Okay. And high protein.
High
and
protein
simple.
and low glycemic.
Yes, lovely. Packaged health snack, even if it says it's healthy, yes or no?
It depends.
Depends.
I mean, makhana can be healthy, right?
Yes, makhana, a packaged makhana is healthy.
Yeah, they're all in packs.
Okay,
and so packaged nuts
chips,
are healthy.
Packaged baked chips, beetroot chips.
Excellent.
Oh, and that's a good choice.
Yeah.
You're okay with that,
Yeah.
even though it's inside a bag.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have food. If it's coming from a factory, it has to be packed. So that doesn't make it processed.
Okay. Protein bars. Yes or no?
Protein bars depends. I would, if it's, the ones which are with the wrong sources of protein, then no. But if they are natural sources of protein, because if it's an ultra-processed protein powder which has been put in, I'm
Yes.
not in favor of it.
But if it's made out of nuts and
yes,
seeds.
it's great.
It's still a lot of sugar though, Ishi. It's
It depends again, what are the ingredients? Today people are using dates, people are using coconut sugar and other healthier versions.
so some assimilations are okay.
Yes.
But you're not okay with the protein powder variety of
Yes,
protein
yes.
bars. One advice to reduce sugar cravings.
One advice to reduce sugar cravings, to just give up sugar.
Does that take care of sugar cravings? To give
Yeah.
up sugar? Then
Yeah.
wouldn't you miss it more?
Only in the first few days. But having said that, there are multiple things. And I would just say that if you do have a sugar craving, then address it with things which have like dark chocolate or say just dates or nuts, a combination of chocolate and nuts or dates and nuts and things
So
like that.
combine the sugar with the protein.
Yes.
So it'll take it away.
Yeah.
Nice. Or give it away completely.
This alone won't cut it. Like I said, it has to be nutritionally adequate.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
There
you
are
will
other
continue.
factors in
Yes.
place.
Yeah.
White rice, is it a friend or a foe?
Rice is a friend, but it depends what kind of rice it is. And
White rice?
in the right quantity, and depends on who you are.
Okay.
So, and what time you have it.
Okay. So there are considerations, but it's not a complete no.
Yes.
Okay. It's a mixed yes.
It's not a mixed yes. It's a yes with the qualification.
Okay. Yes, with some caveats. One good habit for gut health.
Again, you put me in a spot, but if I have to just say something which is absolutely neutral, would be fasting.
That's amazing. And so when you say fasting, do you mean like a weekly fast?
Again, it all depends.
So it's not a
It could be a
one-size-fits-all.
time-restricted fast. It could be just a fruit and vegetable fast. It could be a water fast. But whatever it is, as long as you're giving your gut rest for an X number of hours, 16 or plus, you will start healing inside.
So this would also include intermittent fasting for some people then?
Yes.
If it's a 16-hour break.
Yes, that's what I meant, time-restricted eating.
Yeah, fantastic. What's a good way to cook, with ghee or with olive oil? I'm presenting the Western and the Eastern, two extremes in terms of mediums.
I would say from the Indian perspective, mustard oil and ghee.
Mustard oil and ghee, okay.
Yeah. And for those who can afford olive oil, the real extra virgin
Yes.
olive oil, excellent.
Okay, so both are good choices.
But yeah, one doesn't replace the other.
So both have their space. One healthy habit for busy professionals, people who are always on the go.
No shortcuts to that.
So the more you plan, the less you'll fall.
The more mindful you are.
And I think this is my last question is, what does a typical healthy Indian plate look like? Is there such a thing which you would say a well-balanced meal, which is an Indian meal?
Yes, I mean, today I would say healthy plate must have different colors, the phytonutrients, the
Yes.
vegetables, and the fruits. So at least 4 to 5 or 6 colors or 7 colors, if even better. And so that can be, different kinds of vegetables and fruits, and they can be put in the grains, etc. In that. But having a protein, good portion of protein, and having, if you're okay with yogurt or something, have that, and some salad or some fermented food.
Fermented
Some
food.
pickle, fresh pickle, not the oily pickles, but the ones which are made with the acid,
Like
which
a kimchi.
fermented.
Yeah.
Yeah, kimchi is Korean, but
Yes.
look at our own, the vinegar-based fresh pickles with carrots and
Yeah.
with,
Yes.
the
Yes.
the ginger and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
the garlic and things like that, which are fermented to give you some lactobacilli. So that is fermented food. For that matter, even some fermented idli dosa, that kind of food. So some form of fermentation, and the grains according to your needs. So it could be the choice of the grain, and the quantity of the grain has to be adjusted. So these are the givens. The protective foods, the proteins, the vegetables, and the fruits must be there, and the grain has to be adjusted.
And if there is no meat on the plate, that's okay. I didn't hear you say meat
Well,
necessarily.
actually, because when you say traditional, it's usually perceived as vegetarian.
True.
So dal can be a chicken or a fish or a lamb or whatever you like. So that's fine.
And any messages for the people of India, for people listening in? Any message about nutrition and health? If you had to give the one big message.
Well, your nutrition is not just is a marker for health. For clearly, when you get your reports, it's a maker of health. And I would boil it down to one saying, which is very traditional: "Jaisa an, vaisa man."
Jaisa an, vaisa man.
And jaisa man, vaisa tan. So
Jaisa man, vaisa tan. So please translate it.
So it really means that the food that you eat, the choice of the food and the grain will determine how you feel.
Yes.
And how you feel determines how your body will be. And if it's my original line, it's a grain changer is a game changer.
Grain changer is a game changer. Well said. Thank you, Ishi. Thank you, Ishi Khosla. This was a lovely conversation and a lot of good information, and we must take care of our gut.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you, Archana.
Thanks, Ishi.
Thank you for having me.
Hope you like this show. Please do like and subscribe on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Please also follow us on Instagram at The Thoughtful Medic Podcast. Also, please share your feedback in the comment section of each of these. It will really help us to create content which is based on your needs. Additionally, do share with your friends if you liked what you saw, and keep tuned in for future episodes of The Thoughtful Medic Podcast.